So good morning, especially to those of you on the West Coast, and thank you for joining us. Today's speaker, I have the privilege of introducing Bonnie Kisselstein, who is town historian for the town of Lysander in Baldwinsville, New York, and is also the local history librarian at Baldwinsville Public Library. And full disclosure, happens to be my mother. So take it away, Mom.
So my title is Public Historians of the State of New York, and presented by Bonnie at the town of Lysander, from the town of Lysander. Now, for all of you from around the area, you may not know where the town of Lysander is. We're pretty much in the center of New York State, but most of our mailing addresses are Baldwinsville, and Baldwinsville is on the Seneca River. And I'm going to back up and give you a little history. The first permanent settler came in 1794 and built a log cabin. He was the military man, Revolutionary War, and he just settled on some land and decided how he could make a living, and that was that along our Seneca River. He decided that he could help by getting people around our rifts. In the middle of the Seneca River, you could not, at Baldwinsville, you could not go east and west because there was 7-foot rifts. So he helped people ford their things around the rifts so that they could go on to west, because that was time of settling of people, Revolutionary War soldiers getting their land because they were paid with land, and westwards expansion. There weren't very many people, of course, but anyways, two of the people that he helped get around the rifts were Dr. Jonas Baldwin and his wife Betsy, and a couple of their children who were coming from Little Falls, where Dr. Baldwin had worked on the canals down there being a physician, and he was going to his land in Ovid. Now, Betsy wasn't very happy because she was down near Albany, and they had lots of, it was more settled, and they had houses and whatnot. They were leaving to go to nothing, and they would start with square one on a log cabin and et cetera. And so he promised her that he would buy her any place along the way. And while the McCary was fording their possessions, he and Betsy toured the whole north side of the Seneca River, and eventually came back and bought it. He went on to Ovid, and he also went on to eventually went to Onondaga Hill, which is a little bit closer. But the few people that were here in 1809 persuaded him to come back and develop his land, because there was still the rapids, and he couldn't get the rifts, couldn't get around it. So Dr. Baldwin came and he built the first dam, which was a tree felled across the river, the river was not as big as it is now. And then he built canal, and he built the first bridge, which was a toll bridge. The canal was along the north side of the river, and it was called the Baldwin Canal. And that really got us on the map because it gave us water power and whatnot. So anyways, that's a little blurb about Baldwinsville. And also I want to say the town of Lysander is the north side of Baldwinsville. What you see in front of you, the red line is the north side, and then and that's Lysander. And then where the blue is, that's the town of Van Buren, which was at one time the town of Camillus. So those basically, Baldwinsville is made up of Lysander and Van Buren, and the villages of Baldwinsville is in the middle. So that's a little background. Anyways, I want to start out by giving credit to my local history mentors. I've always been, especially since 7th grade, been interested in local history, and still am. I would call my mentor, and my husband is also into local history. We both had the privilege of having Pearl Palmer for 7th grade social studies. She was a Lysander historian from 1946 until her death in 1970, and she initiated the start of local history club called Beecham in 1958. She was its first president. She was a prolific writer, as most of us are, and wrote for the local newspaper, and was a life member of Onondaga Historical Association. one of our elementary schools is named after her. And my husband, when we were talking about it this morning, my husband she started a club called Stihaha and took the kids to Albany and Niagara Falls and all over. But she was a gem. I really enjoyed her. Other people that have helped me is Anthony Christopher. He was a historian of the village and also of the town of Van Buren, and he also was a prolific writer and a photographer. Now we have much of his materials donated to us, which at the local library, but I also have stuff at the town of Van Buren, and we also I'll tell you a little bit later, but shared his stuff is shared on his photos are shared on New York Heritage. And Ruth Conwell was another good historian and a good friend and a neighbor, and we worked a lot together. And she also was a prolific writer. And I became historian in 2004, and am still on the job. And previous to that, 1964, I started teaching in Fulton, taught first grade. I can remember the first year making a little Thanksgiving scene at the classroom, and we even brought through my dad. We even brought a live turkey for the day in a cage, of course, and from the Plainville Turkey Farm. And from 1965, when we got married, through 2000, I was both in the classroom and the elementary library. First of all, I was in the classroom for 20 years, and then I took over as the elementary librarian. And local history has always been a passion. In fourth grade, when I was teaching, mostly fourth grade, that concentrated on Baldwinsville's history, slotting in the local, early history, slotting in Baldwinsville wherever it fit. And that kind of went on from there. Now, a little bit about New York State historian law. New York State is the only state requiring a public historian in every municipality. Other states typically rely on historical societies, history teachers, and independent historians to preserve their history and genealogical resources. The law is New York State's historian law is 57.07. This law was adopted in 1919 and mandates that a historian be adopted for every municipality and define the responsibilities of research and writing, teaching and public presentations, historic preservation, and organization advocacy and tourism promotion. A public librarian, a public historian can get a New York State Library P card. You can go on the line and get it if you're a historian, and it gives you greater access to the New York State Library. And as I said, go to the website to sign up. Now we have a professional organization in New York State. It's called AFNI for short, Association of Public Historians for New York State. And I put the website up, the address up. It's got a lot of stuff on there. And one thing, it maintains a list of approximately the 1,641 historians in the state, including those counties that have one, which New York or Onondaga County does not have a public historian. I think that's because of Onondaga Historical Club, but I don't know. But we don't have an official one, and we do have a state historian. For a while, we didn't have a state historian, but now we have a wonderful one who works well with us and with the state archives and all kinds of things in Albany. He's wonderful. The AFNIS also provides training opportunities, annual conference, and regional meetings, and a newsletter. And by regional meetings, I mean our state is divided into several regions. Our area is part of Region 9, and we'll have a meeting every year and some kind of educational stuff too. So that AFNIS, as I said, that's a wonderful website to kind of give you some ideas. And it allows you to search for names. And I'm trying to remember what it is, but there's a little up in the corner, you can put in P something. I think it's P something, and then you can put in like Onondaga or Baldwinsville or whatever you're looking for, and it kind of searches because it's 100 or 1,000 or 1,600 people. It's quite a few names on there, so there's a way of searching it down so that you can get what you're looking for, and it gives their contact telephone numbers and addresses and emails. So that's a good thing to know about. Job requirements. There's nothing specific as to requirements, as just what is mentioned in the law: the research, teaching, presentation, historic preservation, organization, advocacy, and too early. Now, requirements for the municipality. Basically, the only requirement is that they appoint an historian. There's no requirement for education, salary, hours, office facilities, and budgets for supplies. Now, I'm very fortunate in the town of Lysander. I don't get a huge salary. I get $1,000 a year. And some historians have no salary at all, or adequate space, or even a budget. There's no requirements, just that you got to have one. My Lysander office is also very good. I have a nice office, spacious office with file cabinets for my files, a computer hooked up to the internet, a printer both in my office and also hooked up to the larger one in another room, and a desktop scanner. And I also maintain a display cabinet in the lobby. Some historians have all their information at their homes, which of course is not very good, but that's what it is. A little more about my past. I retired in 2000 from formal teaching and being a school librarian. I was asked to substitute at the Baldwinsville Library. Now I'm a librarian in charge of local history with 11 hours per week. I also spend time in the historian's office at the town of Lysander, and of course those two jobs overlap. Now for my fulfilling of requirements. I write weekly for the local newspaper, a newspaper column called History Mystery. We put in a picture 1 week with a question, and the next week we put an answer. And I've been doing it since 2011. It's getting kind of hard to put something new up, but keep my agent brain active to find out, okay, what haven't we done now? There's another gal that does some of them too. I've produced numerous brochures for the historian's office and the local history room at the library, walking tour of the village, the National Register District, Radisson, and I'll explain a little bit more about that, and that's NYOW, North New York Ordnance Works. Genealogical resources of Onondaga County in conjunction with the downtown library to make sure that all the information is correct. By bibliography of William Beecham books. William Beecham was a reverend for the Grace Episcopal Church, and he also still, even though he's been dead for years, was considered very much of a very much of an authority on Native Americans. He did extensive research, and there's numerous books on him. So I've made a bibliography, and as I said, he was in the Reverend in Baldwinsville, so that's why we have so many of his books. And I maintain a list of the cemeteries in Baldwinsville, Lysander, and the town of Van Buren, most of which I have databases at the library and also at that's historian's office. Now, two things I would recommend are New York Heritage site. I give you the website there and their logo. Through a grant from CLRC, which is the consortium of libraries in central New York. Baldwinsville Library has contributed historic photos, which came from Anthony Christopher. New York Ordnance Works declassified photos, and New York Ordnance Works was at Pearl Harbor. After Pearl Harbor, the government came in and gave 6,000 acres, 30 days to get off their property. They had to find someplace else to live. They had find new occupations, a lot of them, and the farmers all had to have auctions and get rid of their stuff. Anyways, and then they put up a munitions plan, which we have an extensive amount of information on. It's now all declassified. We have diagrams and maps and just all kinds of all kinds of information on that. That is now the community of Radisson in the town of Lysander, which is it's just a community. We have all the high school yearbooks up until about 2016. For the copyright, we can't go all the way to what we have to the current year, but it'll eventually feed into more. But you can go look up our high school yearbooks from the 1800s and even print off pictures and whatnot. And that's on New York Heritage. We have 2 anniversary editions of the former local newspaper, the Gazette and Farmers Journal, and they are all online. And also through another CLRC grant, we have put in for getting our newspapers digitized. I'm working on the 3rd grant, and we send it off to Northern New York Historic Newspapers, and they digitize them for us and put them up on the website. There's the website and their logo. They have recently revamped their website, so there also is a tutorial on it, but it is very easy to use. I found doing the writing for my column, I've found things like in the middle of the village, there's a tall wall that suddenly I realized, wait a minute, that's part of the Seneca Hotel. Well, the Seneca Hotel, we had 3 of them, huge ones, and they all burned. And I thought, how is that there? Well, I went on this website and I was able to find that it was the firewall. So I ended up with doing a history mystery on that. But I recommend using that. It's for any newspapers that have been put in to that site from all over the state. And back up to New York Heritage, there's a lot of information from a lot of different places that have put information on New York Heritage. So there's 2 good sites to use. Now, for my responsibilities for teaching in public presentations. I started in the class, the first thing I did, I think, was I started in the classroom from slides back in the days before the internet, did slides from Anthony Christopher and did a presentation that way, and I did it at schools. But since then, I've done many videos through PAC-B, which is our local access channel. We've done PowerPoint programs and videos, and so we got the walking tour of Baldwinsville, the walking tour of and then also these are brochures too, some of them. Walking tour of Oswego Oneida National Historic District, which my husband headed up that research in the 80s, and we got a designation for the wonderful houses that are on Oswego, north, and then west to on West Oneida. The Syracuse University architectural students even come and research those houses. Okay, and then Female Charitable Society, that's a program on that. Female Charitable Society, which I'm very much a part of, was started in 1817. In 1815, there was a killing frost every month of the year in the Philippines, a volcanic eruption in the Philippines in 1815. In 1816, there was a killing frost every month of the year, and there were no seeds, no baby animals weren't born, and people were destitute. So these ladies and a Presbyterian minister, it was a non-denominational, got together and started Female Charitable Society. Female charitable societies were around the area. We are not connected with any, but we started, as I said, we started in 1817, and the ladies even fed the Indians that were camped on the edge of the village. And we've been going ever since. We are now 216 years old, and we loan sick equipment to anybody in the Baldwinsville School District free of charge. We're all volunteers. We loaned the first wheelchair in 1928. Now, I did a program on Betsy Baldwin. She was the wife of Dr. Jonas Baldwin and the first president of Female Charitable Society. I've done one on Harvey Baldwin. Now, Harvey Baldwin was Dr. Baldwin's son, and he lived in Baldwinsville, and then he eventually moved to Syracuse, and he became its first mayor. I did a program on that. Another child of Dr. Baldwin and Betsy was Betsy Baldwin Allen, and she ended up moving to Houston, Texas, and became the mother, because she's considered the mother of Houston, Texas. A lot of information on her if you go onto the website, but so I did a program on her. And as I mentioned, New York Ordinance Works. I've probably done that program at least 25 times around the area, but it's fascinating and a lot of information. Then we did one. A friend of mine who was a retired teacher also, and also videoed for back. We decided there had to be one on on Baldwinsville's Barge Canal, because many people think we were part of the Erie Canal. The only place where Erie Canal hit our area was in the southern end of Van Buren. But so we came up with wrote a script called Then and Now, Water Street, Lot 24. And it tells about the digging of the Barge Canal, which was extensive. They had to remove 65 buildings out of where our lock is, and extensive amount of work. So we've got all kind. We started out on the video with the rifts, and then went into the Baldwin Canal, and then went into the digging of the Barge Canal. So that's a fascinating. Some of these, by the way, are available on the PAC website, and also some on the library. Okay, and then Morris Machine Works, very much a big part of Baldwinsville, our largest employer until Anheuser came around. But they invented the centrifugal pump in Baldwinsville, and it was very much a part of our community. Is now was sold to ITT, but they still use our patents. The Battery A was a battery that took care of the horses from the Syracuse Armory, and the men lived there, and their families lived there. I came about by that because I'll tell you later how I learned about it, learned the information about it. And currently I've been doing quite a bit of the Baldwinsville alphabet. I devised a program on the alphabet and take it to the schools or anybody else that wants to hear about it, where like AA was asters. We had flowers. We had an aster farm, which I mentioned down below here. U.S. Williams Seed Company. They had 50 acres of asters. Pendergast Farm and Phoenix Farm and a Oswego Stock Farm. That was up towards Phoenix, but still a part of Lysander. And an extensive amount of information on that. I've been told by the family that the Clydesdales came out of that. I haven't been able to substantiate it, but I'm working on that. See if I can find out more about it. I've done one on early churches, early industries, and early hotels. And another one, a tremendous amount of buildings were moved from one place to another. How they ever did it way back in the early 1900s, I have no idea, but I produced a program called Move Them, They Did. And then there's one on the Willett House. Willett House was a very large house on the Seneca River towards Belgium. And it did a lot of history on that. It's fascinating. And I've done a program on colonial history, or colonial festival, but I started that as an activity for fourth graders in 1983, and it's still taking place. We had all fourth graders in the district, including the St. Mary's and other school, came to the big bus garage and went through different colonial things. Now it's since the pandemic has been going in a small way in the individual schools, but was very successful, has been very successful. Organization, advocacy, and tourism. All my adult life, even before I became a historian and a public library historian, I have been involved in the community. For years, for well over 20 years, we had McCary Day, which is now involved into the Rotary doing Seneca River Days. Barge into Baldwinsville. We celebrated the 200th anniversary of the Barge Canal. And it's a historian for the United Methodist Church. I presented many items of history on the history of the church for its 150th anniversary dedication of the current building in 2020. I still maintained an archives at the church too. And I also produce information and brochures for the Baldwinsville Visitor Center at Lock 24. Excuse me. For many years, I've been involved with the Beecham Historical Club, which is that club I said that Pearl Palmer started. Many of the programs I've produced are come around because of that. And as I said before, I've taken them elsewhere besides Baldwinsville. I've done the ordnance works in Onondaga Hill and just all over the place. My husband and I are very a part of Vicarious Legacy Historic Preservation. Since its founding, my husband, its first president, and I have still involved in the mission. Our local historic district came about because of this. Also, I serve on the board of Shacksboro Schoolhouse Museum run by Vicarious Legacy. I've been involved with, thanks to Pomeroy's Pope Foundation, I've done some historic markers. It takes quite a bit of documentation, so a couple have been rejected, but one I did was Willett Track, which is on along the river, and it's where the Willett house was, but it's the Meredith Willett got land from the Revolutionary War, and that was there. So that we've put a sign up. As you can see, it's needs a little refurbishing, which they're going to do. And it's strange that I got it, and then it had to be refurnished, and this is the one that's refurbished, so they're going to replace it again. Possibly it's too close to the road with the salt is what's happening. And then the one on the right is the World War II, and that is a commemoration of the Ordnance Works, and that stands on Willett Parkway in Radisson. Some other tidbits. Was working at the library, and someone who happens to be on our friends right here, Pat Knobloch, came to look for information on a relative. It turned out she's a cousin of my husband, and previously unknown to him. She shared a diary of a relative of hers who fought in the Civil War. And long story, he brought his Chinese daughter to Baldwinsville and painted a pagoda on the side of the barn to keep her from being homesick. And it recently has been repainted and restored. Well, I don't know restored. It's been repainted. We're not totally happy with the way it turned out, but it's still there. And it's called, the farm is called Pagoda Hill. She also gave me a copy of the diary, and I've retyped it. It's now available at the library and also the town of Lysander. I also have in a recent email from her another diary that I need to print off and also put in collection. And also through her relations, we have a copy of extensive genealogy of the Bailey family, which has a large chapter on the Pagoda Hill. Anything else to add, Pat? She there?
Yes.
Anything else to add?
No.
I covered it pretty well, I think. But
I think you covered pretty well. It's still in the works.
I'm very happy to say we now have a wonderful new friend who visits us occasionally, and she's in California.
I will add that the family is moving towards an application to Finding Your Roots, the TV show.
Oh, cool.
Follow up on this. They've applied for a possible slot.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
That would be fun.
That'd be fun. Thank you. Okay, and I also have many other contributed genealogies. People will stop at the library or at the town and give me copies of their genealogies, which I keep in mostly in the local history room, but also have some at the town of Lysander. And in fact, when I came in to my desk today, there was an envelope and there was information on Morris Machine Works. So people are always handed me things. Many of the, as I said, many of the items in the library are reproduced from the town files. Another time I was presenting a New York Ordinance Works program in Onondaga Hill, and a woman asked me if I knew anything about Battery A, which I mentioned before. Turns out her father grew up there. And previously I'd known about it, but I didn't really know anything about it. Well, since then I've found out, as I said before, that the horses, they kept the horses there in the summer and also put on programs and whatnot. And so that's Battery A, and I found out a lot more about that. And another meeting at the Liverpool Public Library, a woman attending asked if I would like information on the Toll family from Baldwinsville. Well, I didn't really know a lot about it, but I ended up being given photos and the largest genealogy chart I've ever seen. It fits, if you know about map files, it fits the whole drawer, and it's available in our map file. But it turned out that the family was very prominent in Baldwinsville. And also, I think I didn't mention it, I did a program on the Toll family too, but I'm always looking for stuff and always getting more stuff. So why am I still doing this at age 80? I've always loved learning and local history, and it keeps my aged brain active. Anybody have any questions?
Miss Bonnie, can you give us some examples of the kind of requests you get as the town historian from people? Is it birth, marriage, death records? What kind of things are you able to give, and what kind of things are you not allowed to give?
Like I've also have part of the that brochure I mentioned. I have where you can get information, like your Kate Downtown Library has more, like they can get Kate step in if you want. You have more records on marriage records and whatnot. I don't have marriage records, and also I need to say that we are not allowed to get paid for doing genealogy, but I do give anything I've got. I use what I have to see if I can find things like my cemetery databases. They're helpful, and Pearl Palmer's book and any other books that I might have. Sometimes I can find information. So that's I look at what I have and see what I can find. I do not have any land records. Kate does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kate. Feel free to jump in. So they have, our newspaper. We have all our newspapers on microfilm, but that only goes back to 1840, and then official records in New York State were not started until about 1880. So people ask for 1800. Good luck. You know, I mean, I do have the census records from the state, and of course online we can find a lot of other things. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Jerry.
No, that was Scott.
Well, Scott, does that answer your question?
Ms. Bonnie, do you have a good relationship with the town clerk in Baldwinsville? Are you able to access records?
The town clerk has specific information. Yeah. So she can.
Are you able to access records through her?
You can ask. Yeah, you can contact her.
We did have one in the chat. What is the name of the person whose Civil War diary is available at Baldwinsville? Oh, and I do apologize.
George Hamill.
George Hamill. Okay. Let me see.
And I should say he worked for he was in the Confederate Army, and then eventually came back to Baldwinsville, and then he went to China and worked on the channels down there, or in China, and had a daughter, and he brought her back here. As I said, that's quite fascinating.
I'll add he had to be in the Confederate Army because he was in the South when the war broke out.
Couldn't get home. Couldn't get home, right.
Right. And then as the Northern Army took over, he joined them and then was able to go home.
And he is buried at Riverview Cemetery in Baldwinsville.
Oh, and you mentioned the Toll family, and we had a
Oh.
question come in by email, Mom,
Uh-huh.
about John Toll. And they're looking to find out the parent, his parents.
Have them send me an email
Okay,
and I'll see what I can find. I know that the first sheriff in Baldwinsville was a Toll. And actually, I think the town of Van Buren started in a Toll tavern, and where they formed town of Van Buren. So there is, I don't have an extensive amount on Tolls, but I can, certainly look and see.
okay,
So have them send me an email.
okay, sure.
What are some of the brochures that you've done?
Oh, most of the programs have, let me back up. Okay, I did walking
Oh.
tours,
Oh, okay.
walking tour is a brochure. Both walking tours are brochures. No, New York Ordinance Works, I have extensive list of all the materials that we have. Churches, cemeteries, I should say. But most of the rest of these are PowerPoint, but I have a number of brochures, and I also have ways to look up information in the county. I have that brochure too.
Oh, wow.
Anything else?
Hi, Mrs. Kisselstein.
Hi.
My aspect is looking at genealogy.
Uh-huh.
I've got a Stewart relative that married a Palmer
Okay.
back in the day.
And my maiden name is Palmer.
I do know such a thing. And which is why I kind of signed up for this one today. Do you have hours at the library that you talk genealogy, or?
Do I talk genealogy? No, actually, Kate's been doing quite a few different things. My hours are basically when I show up or by appointment.
Okay.
I don't teach. I haven't taught any, but we've been talking about having Kate come do her. She's got about 7 or 8 programs that she's done on different things. I certainly can help with genealogy. I love researching, and about Palmer. I have my great great grandfather. The only thing I have is his wife's obituary. She was married 3 times. He was the middle one, and that clearly states my great grandfather was his son. And the only other thing I have is the mortality census of 1849. And that's all I know about him. And so talk about genealogy and Palmer. Maybe I wonder if you've got anything that can.
I do have a few. Pearl put a wonderful article in the Messenger ages ago. I don't know if you've ever gone to Fulton History.
Oh yes, and I I apologize. I didn't put that in there. Fulton History, definitely. If you don't know Fulton History, put that FultonHistory.com. It's a wonderful.
Yeah, he's done a wonderful job there. I believe he has more newspapers digitized than the National Archives, which is pretty cool. And his is free, which is even better.
Well, and Northern New York Historic Newspapers is also free, as is the New York Heritage. They're all free, so they're great places to research.
So Hannah Palmer, who had married William Riley Stewart, is where I'm kind of stuck. I'm more stuck with my Stewart than I am with Hannah, because as you know, the Palmers go way back.
And there's a lot of different ones, right?
Yeah, including being one of the founding ones in Baldwinsville area.
Yeah. I would love to be related to Pearl Palmer, but I haven't been able to get past my great great grandfather. So do contact me by email, and we'll see if we can get together. Are you from this area?
I do live in Syracuse. Yeah, I still visit my mom who still lives across the street from where you used to live.
Oh,
I was there yesterday.
oh, good.
Okay,
So do email me and we'll
Try to meet it. That'd be great.
send me some particulars and I'll check Pearl Palmer and her book. As I said somebody else that's can have circulation if you find anything in it. And
So she has a book?
oh yeah, she wrote for the Messenger back at her time.
Yeah.
And I was just using it. It's right here, and it's indexed. It might tell somebody went to school. It might tell they were on jury or various.
Oh, wonderful.
It's all indexed, so it's not. It doesn't have a lot of land records in it, but it does. It's helpful for Lysander. There also is a book on that was done early on Van Buren. So.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I will reach out to you, and hopefully at some point we can get together. That would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
And
my hours are not rigid, so like sometimes I come in the evening or whatnot. So.
and I put her emails in the chat for.
you
for
did.
anybody.
I saw that, and
Yeah,
and thank
okay.
you again for being my grade school teacher.
You're welcome.
It instilled a love of history in me. How's that?
Well, I'm so proud. Thank you. So Kate, you might want to put your email in too, because I often turn to Kate for their extensive information that they have downtown, which is wonderful.
There we go.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, okay. In terms of newspapers, as you well know, Bonnie, there's a gap in the Baldwinsville Farmers Gazette,
Oh, yes. And we have-
1894, 1895.
There are
And
no
it
civil.
boggles my mind that somebody somewhere out there doesn't have copies of those newspapers somewhere. There's 2 years worth. They burned up, I guess.
There's
And-
quite a few that are missing, really. There
Yeah.
are no Civil War years exist any place that we know of. If anybody finds any local newspapers local newspapers of which they had extensive stuff in it, obviously.
Yeah. But it
And
would be good to put out a call, to all the historical groups, like anybody out there have copies. The
Yeah.
Fulton database doesn't have it either. So it's like,
no, they don't seem to exist anyplace. And I've checked OHA, they don't have them either.
it's hard to believe.
I know. We'd love to have them.
I wish he would do the Jordan Leader. He hasn't done that yet.
Oh, he
But to
hasn't.
get CLRC, which is Consortium Libraries, they have a grant, and you can apply for a grant. It's not that difficult to do, and they'll then you can send it to, you can take it where you want, but I took it to Northern New York historic newspapers, and they digitized and OCR them, which means that you can read the optical resolution and put it up on the website. So our last grant is still being worked on, but then we'll do the next one, which will bring us right up to current year.
Do we have any other questions? Is that? Okay. Anything else you'd like to let them know, Mom?
I think I hope we've covered what they wanted to hear.
Okay, and so the recording of this will be available early next week, possibly Monday, but definitely no later than Tuesday. And our next genealogy group will be meeting on October 27th, and we'll be talking with the Onondaga County Office of Vital Statistics. There's going to be
Oh,
a staff member or members available to answer questions.
that should be great.